All right. Thank you, Abdul Salam Jibril, for the background here. And let me start to introduce our guests. Let me start with Dr. Shehu McAfee, who's former Commissioner for Education, and he joins us from our Kaduna studio in Kaduna State. Dr. McAfee, thank you very much for joining us. Okay. And from Kano studio, we have Dr. Philip John Hayab, and he's an educationist and teacher trainer. Thank you very much, Dr. John, for joining us. Thank you very much, Dr.
With me.
Sir.
And joining us via Zoom from Lagos is Chief Adeolu Ogunbanjo. He's the Deputy National President, National Parent Teachers Association of Nigeria. Chief Ogunbanjo, we're glad to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure having me.
All right. We're expecting another guest to be with us for today's conversation here in our headquarters studios in Abuja. But let's begin with Dr. Shehu McAfee, former Commissioner for Education in Kaduna State. We're talking about evolving trends in the teaching profession in Nigeria. But usually we have a litany of lamentations with respect to teachers, teaching, and indeed the general learning environment in our country. And therefore, much more seriously, are we taking our teachers as highly valued participants in the education framework in our country?
Thank you. A teacher is the most important component of our learning system. He shapes the whole environment for learning. And you cannot do without a teacher in any environment if you want somebody to learn. And the teacher manifests himself at home, in school, in four-wall classrooms, and outside. If you look at what is happening today, you lament, of course, to say that, yes, a teacher is not getting the right treatment he deserves in the society. And that's because he's part of the society. There's a lot of problems surrounding the educational system. Funding is one, training is another. Of course, a lot of teaching material that are required for a teacher to discharge his or her responsibilities also are required. But again, despite that challenges, you find that it's the teacher now that is shaping the whole system. The teacher will look at his or her own environment and use the local available resources and ensure that he or she delivers the message to the pupils. And I think so far, I will commend the Nigerian teachers at all levels, both at basic and post-basic and the university level. Because despite all the greenery of the other parts of the world, outside the teaching profession, a lot of teachers are ready to remain in classroom, are ready to teach. And of course, that's why we are where we are today. Assuming that in terms of welfare services to teachers, meaning remunerations, salaries, retirement benefits, teaching aids, the enabling environment, I assure you teachers of Nigeria will do better than teachers elsewhere. If you compare the environment where our teachers are teaching, if you compare with other countries, that I have been to a lot of countries and I've seen what they are doing, you find that the resilience is high in Nigeria, the patients are there. Look at the salary package of a Nigerian teacher at all levels. Let me give one candid example. In 1988, somebody was employed as an assistant lecturer in Bayero University, Kano. The first salary of that gentleman, after buying foodstuff in his house, he took his wife to Lesser Hajj, to Mecca, within the same salary, and came back. If you now aggregate that salary of that year and what the same person is receiving today as a professor, you will lament. But again, that person still remains in the teaching profession, still remains in the university environment, and is still teaching. So what am I saying? I'm trying to say that I'm commending the teachers of today, wherever they are, but I am saying that we need to do more, government needs to do more, the society needs to do more, and of course, we need to also look at our constitution. Education is in the concurrent list, and that's why we have some of these problems. Some states, some local government don't have the resources to support their teachers, even if they want to do it. Why don't we exclude education, ensure that it's in the exclusive list, so that federal government can fund education from head to toe, and you will teach teachers equally, regardless of their states, regardless of the resources they have in their own states. This will give us the uniformity we require, and of course the enabling environment where teachers will do their best, and I think that will transform to a better society and better Nigerian. You cannot, there is no development will go beyond the education of young people, and the lead person in that is a teacher. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Shehu Usman Mohammed. We do apologize. Earlier on, I introduced you as Dr. Shehu Makrofi, but you are Dr. Shehu Usman Mohammed, former Commissioner for Education in Kaduna State. Thank you. Let me take the question to Dr. Hayab from our Kano studio. We are told that the teaching profession is one of the most sought-after profession in the world today. But in the face of our own experience and within the context of our understanding of, teaching as a career, this will seem illogical, if not absurd, is it?
The challenges that there is what was outlined by the immediate past speaker, the president, Dr. Usman. When he talks about the remuneration of teachers, Nigerian teachers, with all fairness to them, have not been taken care of in the way they should. Yes, so yeah, there is resilience on the part of the teachers, but if teaching in Nigeria is not revolutionized, in no distant time, we're not going to make the kind of headway that we are supposed to make. Now, when you look at the kind of people joining the teaching profession now in Nigeria, unfortunately, it is not what used to be in practice. The best are supposed to be the ones to join the teaching profession. Right now, it is those, to a large extent, who do not get other jobs, particularly at the lower level, that is in terms of the basic education. They are the ones who end up as teachers. Now, so if you don't have the best in the teaching profession, how do you develop? Since we are talking about a nation cannot develop beyond the capacity of their teachers, it therefore means that we have not actually made teaching the most desiring job as it is in other climates. How do we change this? Like the last speaker said, we need to reconsider what is available in our constitution, do some reforms, particularly in terms of the welfare package of teachers, promotion, their training and retraining, and then also look at the entry qualification of who becomes a teacher. When JAM is written, the lowest grades are always the ones allowed or maybe permitted to go to the colleges of education. That practice needs to be reversed. I think, to my mind, as a teacher, trainer, I would say that the best would be that we have those who score the highest. But how do you attract those who score the highest to come to the teaching profession when the salaries they see their own teachers earning is nothing to write home about? One of the ways to even gauge this is to talk to children of teachers. Ask them, would they want to be teachers? The chances are that a large percentage of them would say that they would not want to be teachers because they see the paltry amount of money their parents receive. And in this light, these parents will have to work and even work at night. Teaching is not a job you just wake up in the morning and go to the class and then you come back, you close your books and go the next day. You have to prepare, you have to read, and then bring yourself to the level that you are advanced before the learners, in case the learners too are prepared and ask questions. Now, for us to encourage teachers to get to this level, we have to improve in what they earned. We have to improve their environment, the environment of their work. Some schools, the teachers don't even have a place to sit. They have to find some places, some shades under a tree. Now, in such an environment, I do not see how much involvement that we can say. Rather, we have actually retrogressed, which is unfortunate.
Dr. Philip Hayab, we'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Now, let's go via Zoom to Chief Ogubanjo. We already introduced him. He's the Deputy National President of the National Parent Teachers Association of Nigeria. Chief Adeolu, well, how much of a concern is it to the national PTAs with respect to the ordeal, if you may, of teachers and their profession in our country today? Well, it looks like Chief Adeolu Ogubanjo, did you get my question? All right, it looks like we didn't quite get a connection back to Chief Ogubanjo. If and when our engineers are able to reconnect to him, we will, of course, kick off with that particular question. Now, let's return to Dr. Usman Mohammed, the former commissioner for education in Kaduna State. You're making a radical suggestion, as it were, to have now a unitary system in dealing with teachers. In other words, this would necessitate an amendment, for instance, to the Constitution or special legislation that would say, let's assume the Consolidated Revenue Fund will now be responsible for the payment of teacher salaries nationwide, so that we get away from the ordeal of teachers not getting paid for months on end, as it happens in some states from time to time. How workable is this, in your opinion?
I think it's very workable as a country if we are very serious, if you really want to do it. There are people that are very ready to serve as teachers in any part of the country, but the way we are today, with the federal system, the education is in the concurrent list. I mean, I won't be able to sacrifice myself to go to another state, another local government, and receive the peanut that will not be enough for me to transport myself back to see my family. But if you make it as a national affair, the salary is uniform, and you make it very lucrative, very attractive. People will travel. When I grew up in my village, those who taught me in my primary 4, 5, and 6, 80% of them were not from the environment. They were from different parts of Nigeria. And that's why we had what we were able to get. So my argument is that we can do this even if it's for the next 5, 10 years, at least to move out of where we are today. Is very disheartening to see teachers in some environment, very skilled, with all the passions, but have no resources to deliver what they want to deliver. They cannot buy that. I mean, some of them use their money. Some teachers spend their money In classroom, they buy the white, I mean the markers. Some of them buy chalk while they're still using chalk, and the rest of them. If you ask why, you find that there is no resources. The local government don't have enough to give. The suburb don't have enough to give. The state government have not allocated enough for them at different levels. And again, we still continue to pretend that with state governments and local governments, even at the national level, that we can provide everything free of charge. How free is free? How this free is free? You cannot continue to budget money for education, but at the end of the year, you are only able to access 40, 50, 60% of it, depending on the state. So you roll over, you continue. But this is at the detriment of the learning system. It's the detriment of the intellectual development of somebody, somewhere. And I think we need to rethink and change this. And of course, let me use this opportunity to also say that the nation prepare for this. The nation wants to continue this way because majority of those who are handling the policy matter don't have their children in public schools. Most of their children are in private schools, universities outside the country. Let's take the JAM cutoff marks. If you look at the cutoff marks for medicine or universities, let's say university generally, and the cutoff mark for polytechnics and that of colleges of education, the list is that of colleges of education. So what are you telling us? You are saying that let the worst, let the dull ones go to become teachers, and the brighter ones go to become doctors, engineers, and what have you. What are we saying? What are we saying as a nation? We need to ensure that the best brains go to teaching profession at every level, either at basic education, post-basic, university, and in different perspective. So you need to have a deliberate policy change as far as this is concerned. And there must be, just like what is happening, whoever is going to work in central bank, people come around in his village to congratulate him. Somebody going to NNPC to work, people go around and congratulate him. But if he's teaching, we'll say, oh, sorry, so it's teaching you are going to stay there. 90% of teachers have application elsewhere. They are just waiting for somebody to approve the application for them to leave. You must change it. There must be a deliberate plan to change this. We cannot continue talking without an action. The action requires is that let's have a deliberate policy at every level, starting from federal government. Adding 25%, adding 10% or 50% to salary is not the solution. The working environment of the teacher must be improved. When I grew up in primary school, teachers in my village have houses. They have where they stay. They call it teachers' houses. That's why they stay. They don't need to pay rent. Even if they are paying, it's a peanut from their salary. Why is it now? Why are houses now built for teachers in our schools? In primary schools, teachers have houses? Very few, if it exists. The same thing at every level. So let's create a deliberate plan for us to take care of our teachers at every level, so that people that want to become teachers will be encouraged to go there and teach, so that we can get the best from them and we get the best students that will go to our university and polytechnics and colleges of education, and that's how we'll build the nation. For me, until we do this, I will consider that all that we are doing is rhetorics. We may not change from where we are. And of course, I know why that is happening, because majority of us, majority of the policymakers don't have their children in public institutions. They are mostly in private institutions, and when they finish, they don't even work in public services. They work elsewhere. And I think we need to change this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Usman Mohammed, for the points that you have raised. I want to return to Dr. Philip Hayab in Kano Network Center. Dr. Philip Hayab is still on the issue of getting the proper amendment or appropriate amendment to the Constitution or other legal instrument to enable the federal government, for instance, be in control of the payments of the emoluments of teachers and then having uniformity. For instance, the federal government passed a law, the National Assembly passed a law increasing the retirement age of teachers from 60 to 65, or 40 years, but not all states have domesticated that piece of legislation. So it applies mainly now to those who are in federal government employment. But you're talking about the payment of salaries. We do know about complaints of teachers being owed on end. Now, I should ask you this question as well. Is this a feasible proposal against the backdrop also that we have UBEC, and UBEC didn't require a constitutional amendment to get it functioning? It was the desire to boost basic education in the country that that piece of legislation was passed. So can we ride on that, on what UBEC is already doing, and say, yes, as Dr. Usman Mohammed said, do this for maybe about a decade, and then see what the outcome is, establish a new order, and then proceed therefrom? What are your thoughts?
I believe that the educational sector, subsector in Nigeria requires a reform, and this reform must come immediately. The reason is that the quality of education is falling by the day. You hardly would meet anybody who would tell you that what they see in the street now is what was obtained when they were in schools. For instance, as a learner in a village, in my village of Kuruminjato in what is today Jabo local government, I could read and write in primary 3. When I go back to that village today, some of the learners, even in JSS 3, cannot read. It therefore shows that we have not moved. And if that is the case, then the reform is required. If we are going to uniformize the teacher salary scale, which we have for universities, which we have for polytechnics, and indeed for the federal colleges of education, I believe that that is also practicable for teachers across board in the country. And the reason would be that until we make the teaching profession a lucrative and attractive job, the likelihood that we're going to make the kind of progress that we ought to have made is very, very slim. So I support that the stakeholders, beginning from the National Assembly, the House of Reps, and the State House of Assembly, should begin to talk about the need for a reform, whether it is constitutional or it is going to take the form or the pattern in which drove or maybe inspired the establishment of UBEC. And I must say that UBEC, from my own point of view, is doing well, because I've been part of UBEC training and support for teachers across Nigeria, and I see their drive to support the improvement of teaching and learning. Now, so if this kind of vision is sustained and brought to the question, to the point of uniformizing the salaries of teachers across the nation, I believe we can make headway, and it will begin to bring the evolvement that we want. We will evolve in a way that we would be happy we have. Every profession is making headway. Today we have the Teachers Registration Council, but how much of the law or the provisions that we have actually implemented? Most of these teachers who are registering with the Teachers Registration Council qualified? I mean qualified, have they gone to a teacher training institution? If not, what then is the period, stipulated for them in which if they do not, they will be deregistered or they will not be allowed to teach? As Dr. Usman said, it is when people don't get a job, for many, that they end up as teachers. And therefore, when you meet them and they say, oh, we've gotten a job, they say, as what, as teachers? Say, hey, at least that is a starting point. That is what you hear. So when teaching becomes a starting point and not where people actually hope to be, then it means that we are sitting on a time bomb. And if this time bomb is allowed to explode, then we are going to land ourselves in a big disaster. Therefore, I support the advocacy of scaling the salaries of teachers across the nation, even if it is be for a pilot project of, let's say, 5-10 years, and let's see if this will will support to improve the education system. If it does, why not we continue? After all, governance, rules and regulations, the Constitution is for the betterment of society. And so if this step would better the education system of Nigeria, I would, as a person, support it with all my energy.
Okay, Dr. Eba, I'll still remain with you. You know, we talk about reforms, but as we earlier indicated, you know, during our conversation here in the studio, reforms ought to be well thought out, targeted, and in the case of our discussion, you know, at the area of most need, which means at the level of education where we, you know, have, you know, the greatest challenge. So in view of that, I'd like for you to, you're a teacher trainer. At what level of, you know, educational levels do we have, you know, teachers with, do we have a preponderance of teachers with deficiency in skills and knowledge?
Yes, now that is the problem. It is not easy to pinpoint where the problem starts, but with all fairness, it shows that the problem starts from the basic education. Now, as I said earlier, that I could read in a village that was not even accessible by road at that time. Today, even learners in a city cannot read. Now, there are so many reasons for this. Some of these reasons will include that there are no textbooks in schools, particularly in public schools. When you go to the school, there is no library, functional library as it stands today. And most of the children involved in these schools are actually children from less privileged homes whose parents are not able to afford to buy them textbooks. And then the government has not also provided these textbooks. So the learners will have to depend on rote learning, that is learning by memorization. It is one trend of teaching that has actually gone obsolete today. You cannot learn by rote learning. You learn by carrying out activities in the classroom, and for you to carry out activities in the classroom, you need textbooks, you need learning resources, what others will call teaching aids. So this is a problem. So from the cradle, there's already a crack. Then when you get to the secondary school, there's this issue of not just deficiency by the learners coming into secondary school, but also the issue of number. You have a swelling number of learners coming to JSS1. Maybe sometimes you have 90 learners in a class to a teacher, and these learners cannot read. And then there are no textbooks. So you begin to wonder, how would these learners be able to learn? With what would they use to learn? I often say that for me, the difference between a public and a private school is actually in the context of textbooks. Most children who go to private schools, you know, the private schools will institute a policy that you must buy the textbooks, and if you don't buy the textbooks, you are not allowed to continue in the school. Now, when children have what to use, that is what to work with, definitely within a period of a time, they will be able to build their capacity and then, you know, do not have the deficiency that we now see. So when you move from the secondary school with learners struggling to read, and these are the ones that are likely to score the lowest marks, and then you enroll them as student teachers in colleges of education across the nation. So now, since they cannot read on their own, And then how do they read and then train somebody to read? So it means that the levels of deficiencies actually are not just at one level. They begin from the basic education, which is primary to junior secondary school, and then to senior secondary school, where we just push them to finish. And teachers, unfortunately, sometimes are compelled, even by the authorities, to support these learners in cheating, standing by the windows to give them answers so that they will just finish, let my people go. And they end up in a college of education or in an institute of education at the university level and training to become teachers. I do not see how this can help us get out of the woods. So the levels of deficiencies are not just at one level. They are cut across the systems that builds these learners to eventually become teachers themselves.
Thank you very much, Dr. Philip Hayab. I will understand that Chief Adeolu Ogunbanjo via Zoom is ready now, and therefore online. Chief Ogunbanjo, I earlier asked you a question, but unfortunately you probably didn't get the question. Namely, we do know about the complaints about teaching and the welfare and well-being of teachers in our environment, and how much of a concern is this to PTAs across the country, and what is it they've been doing or suggesting to be done with respect to these complaints?
Well, thank you very much. I must say that the teacher actually is very important to education everywhere in the world. I mean, he must be a source of inspiration. They build relationships. They help students achieve their goals right from, the time they are in nursery up to whatever level they want to, get to. And they build students' confidence. They are dependable, trustworthy, and reliable. I must say these are qualities that teachers should definitely have. And they are impacting so much to our students. But beyond that now is what is the working environment. It's unfortunate that the salaries and wages uniformity is not there. In this case, it means that a particular, the federal workers are encouraged because they are, getting the recommended, in quotes, wages and salaries. But what about other states? Some states will say they cannot afford this, blah, blah, blah. And this is a source of, it discourages the teachers from actually giving their best. Beyond that now is, again, the fact that, hello? Can you hear me? Right. Beyond
continue.
that is the fact that teachers, for instance, the federal government, like the other speakers mentioned, have extended the age to 65. Though a lot of people out there, the public is saying, why should they actually extend the age of teachers, retirement age of teachers, to be 65, when we have new, teachers that should, be engaged? Why do we now want to, extend their own? Those people in service, it means that they are not actually encouraging, employments, recruitments of new teachers. So, but at least the federal government has done that, but it is not also being implemented. Unfortunately, our policymakers too do not make things easy for the teacher, because they are not sending their own children to public schools. If they do, I wish there was, that there will be a legislation that once you are an elected official, you must send your child to public school. Gentlemen, I must say that education will pick up and it will improve. Again, all other professionals have been, if you argue that the teachers are not particularly, being treated well. For instance, the doctors are also thinking, policies are not favoring them. But the teacher is different. The teacher is also training the doctor. So I don't know why government is just not, turning their attention to teacher encouragement, teacher, service. And their service must actually, they must enjoy their service because they do a lot. Without the teacher, there's no nation. However, the Teachers Education Council is there. Governor Rufai had one or two issues with them at that time because he believed that some teachers that were engaged were not actually qualitative enough. So I don't know whether that is a factor the federal government or state governments are considering. But I must say that any teacher that should be engaged to teach should have passed through is a private opinion though, should have passed through the Teachers Education Council. For me, then we will now know that at least we have qualitative teachers out there imparting knowledge into our students. The PTAs, what we do in most schools, the moment we see that, for instance, if there are no maths teacher or science teacher or biology or physics, which is usually, not there, we now engage them through PTA collected money. We do that from time to time. For instance, I know that at a time we're doing that in Lagos. So some few states. At the moment we see that some teachers are not there, we, harness, get some money together and ensure that we engage them. Though sometimes the state government now engage them permanently, they give them permanent jobs when there are vacancies in the ministry. So in a nutshell, sir, I must say teachers must be encouraged the more, and then we should at least put pressure to bear on government so that it will be an interesting job career for the teachers. Thank you.
All right, Chief Ogubanjo, let me still remain with you. And I like for you, in all of, the issues we've been talking about, I'd like for you to also delve into the area of, evolving trends in the teaching methods. We used to know, of the teacher-student relationship and, of course, the rote method of learning, learning by memorizing. Obviously, with evolution, in education, things have changed. Teaching methods have changed. Accessibility and availability of education, is open. I mean, wherever you are, no matter where you are, even in the villages today, in different parts of the world, you can access, education. You can learn. You can teach, students. So there are different methods now of teaching. Can you give us, some of the evolving trends and what do we do? What do we need to do to ensure that, we keep up to date? We also evolve with it.
Well, thank you very much. I remember in those days when we were doing agricultural science in the school, I must tell you that we have farms. Each student will have his farm in the school, and then you grow. You go through the practice of agriculture. But now, a lot of things are now, different. I also remember that when we were doing physical education, we actually go to the field and we, do athletics, jumping and all that. There was funding they funded, Javelin. But then these days, schools rarely have fields. They don't. So a lot of things have changed. Well, they call it modern. I don't know how modern is this. And again, you can now teach, online and all that. This is theory. But for a number of things to actually go the way it should be, I think there should be a summit. The education stakeholders, like the other two speakers, we should actually come together and, develop appropriate policies, fresh in these contemporary times of ours. I think that is very necessary, man.
Okay. Chief Ogubanjo, you made a very useful point there. In concluding your remarks, in addition, of course, to the other very valuable insights that you earlier contributed, and which is a takeoff point. Because yesterday, which was World Teachers' Day, while we were considering the perspective for today's conversation, one question that came up amongst also our colleagues was, how many Nigerian pupils or students today can do the high jump? High jump. And then you keep complaining about all things, around in terms of sporting facilities, which if Ogubanjo himself talked about, demonstration farms for agricultural science. And in primary school, in those days, there used to be gardening or health science, basic things that you would teach, which leads me to another question, and this one is going to Dr. Usman Mohammed. Dr. Usman Mohammed, still with us from Kaduna Network Center. It appears that almost all round our learning, beginning from kindergarten right on to tertiary, is too bookish, rather than aiming for all-round personality development of the individual. How can we shift away from this? Children who are in kindergarten, sometimes parents are complaining about the volume of homework that they are given, about the textbook, children. So how can we get around this?
Please, permit me to clarify an issue before jumping into this question. When we are advocating for a national policy that will reshape the whole system of learning, we are not only specifically, I am not only specifically looking at increasing remuneration of teachers. No, I am looking at the whole system. A teacher, the learning process is a chain, just like you described the food chain system, food security system. You cannot improve remuneration of a teacher when the learning environment is not conducive. I know what will happen in Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian. As soon as we improve the remuneration of teachers beyond any other thing, I assure you, many applicants will live where they are and be applying to become teachers. Whether they are qualified or not, they will be using the relationship of I know this, I know that, I know that. So it's not the issue of remuneration. We are talking of the whole learning environment. You need to improve it. It's because the learning environment is not well improved. That is why what you are saying now is not happening in schools. How many private schools have the sporting facilities? Count, just close your, you are in Abuja, you won't be able to understand what I'm saying. But within Abuja, Kaduna, Port Harcourt, Lagos, how many private schools have sporting facilities and have, spaces that will accommodate that? They don't. So human development is one thing. All they need is to provide a very conducive, decorated environment to attract people to come in, put some computers to attract people to come in, but the other angle of human development is not there. And that's why the issue of homework is very common. They will just give homework. And homework, as you see it in schools, I want to tell you, ask any educationist, will tell you it's not a simple thing as you see it. It's a complex thing. It's a chain. You must understand the context of the curriculum. You must understand, why am I giving this homework? Is it because it's coming from the session I've just delivered, or it's already stated in the curriculum. What is the purpose? And that's why we're getting it wrong. Most teachers give homework. When they give the homework, I assure you, some of them don't know the content. They are giving it because they want the children to go and do it at home, because they know some parents will attend to it. When they come back, they will learn from that. I have seen it myself. The purpose is to improve the quality of learning, to support what you are doing in classroom, because you cannot teach everything in classroom. So some of them need to be done at home. So you see, the chain is, you have a teacher, you have the learner, you have the parents, you have the community itself, and then you need feedback. When the child brings the assignment back, the teacher needs to mark and provide feedback. If anything is missing in this chain, you have a problem. How many teachers are literate enough in my community to be able to attend to those homework given by teachers? Most teachers in private schools, most teachers, I want to say it without missing words, are not trained to deliver the curriculum they are handling. Most of them. Very few. Of course, it has now come to public schools because of the number. Even if you have the trained teacher who is able to say, yes, let me speak to the curriculum, this is apt, I'm supposed to give this one because the session said that I should give this as homework. He has 200 pupils in the same classroom. Tell me how he can mark or he can look at those assignments one by one. So something will be, there is a break, there will be a break somewhere. Either he cannot give the appropriate assignment or homework, or he gives the appropriate assignment but it's not done, he cannot punish, or the child is able to attend to it by the help of his father or mother or his brother or somewhere in the community. By the time the child returns back the assignment, he cannot mark it because he doesn't have the opportunity to do that. He has a lot of classes to attend to, many people to attend to. So when we're talking about looking at the whole policy, we're talking of the whole system. Improve the quality of the teacher, improve the remuneration of the teacher, improve the learning environment, let there be sporting facilities in the environment, let the environment be safe, let it be very close to the community so that the child will not be exhausted when trekking or moving from the house to the school, and let the parents also participate. A lot of children are in school because their parents don't want to see them at home. They are busy in their offices, they are busy in their shops, they are busy elsewhere. We need to understand that it's a joint, it's a stakeholder issue. Everybody must participate. And count me out. I am not in support. I know teachers are very pleased when federal government announced that, the retirement age should be shifted to 65. It can be, you can continue to shift it, 65 to 70 to 75 if you want to. As long as you don't change the learning environment, it will still be the same thing. If you train an intelligent person to become a teacher, I exited after 32 years in service. I've been in classroom for 32 years. I exited and I still teach on my own volition. So I see no reason why that should be an issue. For me, improve the learning environment, improve remuneration. Issue of textbooks. We have a very simple overview. ICT has solved a lot of things now with IT. You can put all the textbooks in the system. The child can work with it, both at home, and in the school, in the classroom. For me, there are many ways of doing that. We don't need to just lock ourselves in one room when we have other opportunities to expand. The learning environment goes beyond the school. It happens in the community.
All right, Dr. Mohammed, thank you. Thank you very much. The issues you have raised are quite germane, but I just feel that this may just be kind of superficial dressing, although they may bring some form of temporary relief to the challenges, in the teaching profession. There still needs to address the fundamental issues, which is, of course, related to the fact that teaching is evolving, education is evolving. There are new ways of doing things. We are in the era of new normal. In other climates, you have a new generation of teachers who are tech savvy, and of course, who are also in tune with the dynamic and sustainable curricula what do we need to do to also grow this population of teachers, in our country today that will be able to address, the yearnings of today's generation. They call them the Gen Z generation, the tech generation. So these are some of the things I would like to ask you, the basic steps we need to take at the moment when we come back. We want to go on a very short break. Dr. Usman Mohammed, please take note. When we come back, I would like for you to just give us quickly basic steps that we need to take to address this issue of, population and curricula. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Let's quickly go on a short break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Let me, just before Dr. Mohammed takes the question, let me bring in Dr. Hayab to, provide an answer. Dr. Hayab, the issues, reforms, provision of books, desk, and welfare is quite in line and will, to some extent address the challenges in the teaching profession. But again, the skills gap is the reason why we're having this conversation. Would we have the skills required to address the challenges in the different sectors of the economy? How do we do that? Like I said, in other climes, you have new generation of teachers who are, are tech savvy. And the curricula also is dynamic and sustainable. So what are the basic steps that we need to do to also engender this caliber of teachers and the quality of the curricula?
Okay, thank you for bringing this question to me. While here in the studio, I was saying the questions, the very question you asked Dr. Usman before now is actually the question for the teacher and not for policymakers. Yes, one of the ways to step up our game is to train and retrain the current teachers. Coronavirus taught us a lesson, and that is that teachers must also become digitally inclined. So technology now has become a force to be reckoned with in education, and that is one big evolving trend in education, particularly in Nigeria. Before now, anyone who was taking a distance learning program in Nigeria will receive the booklets and use these booklets and fill in their answers using these same booklets before they are sent back to the center. But today, people can actually take on a degree and complete it without having to fill in so much of physical books using the online learning. So online learning, which is actually a digitally inclined form of learning, has come to stay, and it's one of the evolving trends in our education system. Various government partners working in the education subsector had actually supported states with tablets. So you go to certain states of the country, you have learners with tablets in the classroom. Before now, this was not common. It was not even possible if a child were to bring a phone to a class, not to even talk about a big tablet. Before now, the chances were that the tablet would be seized by the teacher, and maybe the parents will have to come and beg before they retrieve it. Now that trend has changed. We now have technology in the classroom. Like the reporter who gave us the overview to this conversation said, we have classes with big LED TV, where the teacher can actually use the large screen TV to teach. We have more classes now have the wide marker board, and that is also an evolving trend. Learners are allowed to use technology in the room, in the classroom, so long as there is a phone, there is internet or an SD card in the phone. Even in the remotest of areas, teaching and learning can take place. Like you had noted earlier, The learner today, with the power of a smartphone and being supported by internet, have access to more than 1 billion, billions of books, we can't even count them, of materials. So learners can learn on their own using technology, whether it is powered by the internet or it is stored in SD card or a memory card. That is an evolving trend. Now, if this is happening, and then where are the teachers? The teachers have to be trained to catch up with this trend, or evolving trend. I will say that recently in August, the British Council worked with the Universal Basic Education Commission to train about 150 teacher educators across Nigeria and across the states and Abuja, so as to be able to teach teachers how to use technology to teach. The program is tagged STEP, which means Strengthening Teachers' English Proficiency. So there is a booklet, there is an SD card, and therefore learners, the teachers will learn how to use this to teach. So yes, we have actually, we're evolving, and the teachers themselves need to be brought up to date. One of the challenges is that teachers, particularly in the local areas, once they finish the College of Education or the university and go back there, there is hardly ever any training for them. Now, if we continue like that, we're not going to go further. So the best is to train and retrain teachers to the point that their capacity is brought to meet with the yearning aspirations of the current 21st generation that is digitally inclined. So this is one evolving trend that is happening in the education subsector in Nigeria. We also have what we call project-based learning. Is an evolving trend. You allow the learners to carry out a particular project within a given time and report on this project. All these evolving trends have advantages. They give the learner the opportunity to drive the teaching and learning and not the teacher. The teacher now becomes only but a facilitator, which is supposed to be the kind of learning that we are to encourage in our schools. When you were speaking and Dr. Usman was speaking and Chief, you were talking about the system of training that you received, which was learner-centered at that time. Unfortunately, for some time, there was a shift in training, teaching and learning.
All right, Dr. Philip Hayab, thank you very much there for the issues that you have spoken about. Just before I bring in Chief Ogobanjo one more time, we're talking about training and retraining of the teachers. Oftentimes, we don't seem to focus on training and retraining for teachers in tertiary institutions, particularly lecturers in the universities. In some jurisdictions, well, jurisdiction is a legal term, in some countries, a PhD program encompasses a pedagogical process, because it is not just merely research, you're also going through a teacher training program in the course of that doctorate program. And while that is on, the whole purpose, of course, is to prepare you, whether as a researcher or as a transmitter of knowledge subsequently. But it appears that once people acquire their degrees and they're in the classroom, and you see the way some lecturers behave when they're in the classroom, and you're asking yourself whether they have any recourse to teaching methods that they ordinarily should have. But I'm sure that will be another conversation for another day. Chief Ogobanjo, I want to come back again to you and then reference the issue you talked about, agri demonstration farms when you were in school. We also had them when we were in school. And then Dr. Usman Mohammed also touched on those things. How can the PTA as stakeholders be more effective in pressuring for a translation of current ideas into an all-round personality development for their wards? I'm asking this because there are complaints about our learning system being too bookish. When do we get a hands-on? And I'll give you one example. On Good Morning Nigeria, and everybody is also aware of this, there were security breaches on some of the school premises, some of them government science secondary school. And you saw the perimeter fence, virtually no perimeter fence. The ceilings were all broken. And these are schools where you probably are teaching intro tech, introduction to technology. Was it not possible, for instance, to begin to get the students at a very basic level to learn how to mold blocks in their practical session? You don't have to mold all the blocks in one day. Now, if you say you want to introduce technology, go and meet a senator, go and meet a House of Reps member, go and lobby as part of their constituency project to acquire a block molder for you. Get the students to mold the blocks, get them to set the blocks, get them to build the fences, get them to build the gates. But all of that doesn't happen. We are looking to award contracts, and award contracts. Mayflower at Ikene, I mean, Dr. Tai Sholani was famous for that, for getting the students into hands-on learning. But all of that appears to be dissipating. Everyone is going, book. What would the PTA be doing about this?
Thank you very much, sir. I must add here that one of the speakers in Kaduna, the professor in Kaduna, said that yes, teaching is evolving, and I must also say that yes, we need to move with the rest of the world. We are now, we are now digital, and like I did say earlier, in doing some of these things, we also need to key into the qualitative aspects of, as we are learning digitally, it must also be qualitative. But unfortunately, these evolving trends do not take care of skill acquisition, all by the teachers as well as for the students, because if, the student, the teacher is not well skilled, how will he pass it on to the student? So, again, the example you talked about, sir, about some school perimeter fence broken and all that, and that is a school teaching introductory technology. Perhaps just like the university system, NUC, National University Commission, do accredit some courses or some universities. Our secondary schools must not just be, teaching subjects blindly. If they cannot do intro tech or agricultural science, let them manage with whatever they are, they are comfortable with. So in this case, there must be specialized schools, in a way. Sciences, hardly can you see a biology lab in some of these schools again and all that. Perhaps because of the fact that we are now digital. So, like I did say earlier, sir, a holistic approach to, our current day contemporary times. How do we come together to ensure that education is really, really education? So we need to, honestly, sir, nationwide, come together as stakeholders and then chart a way forward, sir.
Okay, just last, in 60 seconds, Dr. Shehu Mohammed, how do we match teaching with, of course, evolving trends in the teaching profession?
Thank you. We can do that. It's very simple once we make the environment conducive. IT is doing a lot now in the environment for, helping us to deliver what we want to deliver. And parents also and the community must also support us in providing some skills to the students as we've started in our schools. Whatever we are teaching them in school, there should be some component of the community that will support in that, tailoring, knitting, hairdressing, whatever, so that these children also grow up with some skills. That is the only way they will appreciate the role of the society. And then that's how the society also will support what is happening in the four-wall classrooms. The teacher is central. He should be supported both in school and in the community. The government also, we need to understand most of these innovations that we have in improving quality of teaching. We must make sure that whatever we have in the urban environment, we should make it available in the rural environment. If we don't do that, we'll just be building someone who will be working with one leg while the other leg is absent. So we must, as a nation.
All right, we're sorry to interject there. Dr. Shehu Usman Mohammed, former Commissioner for Education, joining us, of course, from our studio in Kaduna State. We'd like to thank you, former Commissioner. Let me also appreciate Dr. Philip John Hayab, an educationist and teacher trainer. He also joined us from our Kanu studio. Dr. Hayab, thank you very much as always. And Chief Adeolu Ogubanjo, Deputy National President, National Parents Teachers Association of Nigeria. We sincerely appreciate you. Thank you very much.
So that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We appreciate your being with us. We are back on Monday, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, look after yourselves and enjoy your weekend. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I appreciate and dedicate today to all my teachers at the University of Lagos, Nasarawa State University, Holy Child College, and to the rest of the teachers who have made this country proud. I am Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak from the GMN crew. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
We all have stories to tell.
The small boy kicked me to open fire on me, so I said, okay, you can cut the right hand. So that's for how my right hand was cut off.
He's working with clutch with which year that it was that guy. No, he's not an ordinary eye. No, he's not an eye. Juju he used marry his wife.
It all depends on how I handle my story and how you're able to handle your own story.
It is what you decide in your mind that determines you, not your situation.
I don't hear well, but one thing is, we are better together.
Dushma Lucy Pius
Welcome to Against All Odds on the Nigerian Television Authority, a program that brings to your doorstep the lives of persons with disability.
Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification, but good social media users